Have we started thinking we're the root? When Paul wrote to the believers in Rome, he stepped right into the middle of an old tension that had been simmering between Jewish and Gentile Christians for years. Both groups had strong convictions about how faith should look, and both struggled with pride. The Jews had been there first. They had taught the Gentiles, who knew little about the God of Israel or his son Jesus. But when Emperor Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome, the Gentile believers were left to figure things out on their own. They grew, they adapted, and they developed new ways of doing church that looked different from what the Jewish believers had known. When the Jewish Christians were finally allowed to return, they were shocked. Worship looked unfamiliar, traditions had shifted, leadership had changed. What they found was not the church they had left behind. And so tension flared. Suspicion, resentment, and pride hardened on both sides. Into this fragile situation, Paul writes, and his message is both humbling and healing. He reminds them that all of us, Jew and Gentile alike, stand before God in equal need of grace. None of us has a reason to boast. We are all branches, not roots. Listen to how he puts it. If the dough offered as first fruits is holy, so is the whole lump. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, although a wild olive shoot, were grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant toward the branches. If you are, remember, it is not you who support the root, but the root that supports you. Romans 11:16-18. What a picture, the root supporting every branch. Paul echoes what Jesus had already said. I am the vine, you are the branches. The reminder is simple but piercing. The branches do not sustain the root. The root sustains the branches. The Jews did not nourish the Gentiles, and the Gentiles did not nourish the Jews. Both were equally dependent on the same life-giving root, King Jesus. When we see ourselves this way, pride starts to crumble. Superiority gives way to humility, and humility makes room for unity. Maybe that is the lesson the church still needs today. How many divisions, spoken or unspoken, exist because we have forgotten that we all draw life from the same root? We might teach, preach, and serve faithfully, but we are not the source of nourishment. We are simply stewards of what God entrusts to us. Paul's message to Rome still reaches across the centuries. We are all sinners saved by grace. None of us can claim any higher place than another. If that truth could sink deep into our bones, how different would the church look? There would be fewer quarrels, more grace, less competition, and more sacrificial love. Hearts would be seasoned with humility and gentleness, the kind of meekness that looks like Jesus. Romans 11 gives us a mirror and a call. Are we living as branches connected to the root, or are we acting as if we sustain the root itself? Do we demand that things go our way, insisting that our perspective is the only right one? Of course, we must always stand on the unshakable truth of Jesus. But if we are honest, sometimes what we call conviction is really pride in disguise. Paul's image of the olive tree invites us to lay that pride down, to remember that all of us, no matter how strong or seasoned we think we are grafted in by grace. When we live from that truth, the divisions fade, and the love of Jesus begins to flow freely again. Because in the kingdom there is no us and them. There are only branches, all drawing life from the same root. What truth from this passage speaks to you most today? I would love to hear your reflections in the comments below.